chicken. It's the Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Dolls like you and me. Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls.
Made him perfectly. So if you got a bump on your nose or lumps on your toes, do not despair. Be like the Raggy Dolls and say I just don't care. 'Cause Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls.
Raggy Dolls,
Raggy
are
Dolls.
happy just to be Raggy Dolls, Raggy Dolls, dolls like you and me. One fine sunny day, the Raggy Dolls were having a picnic by the river. They'd all eaten as much as they could manage and were quietly snoozing in the hot summer sun. All except Lucy, who was picking flowers. Suddenly, she gave a shriek. "Ah!" "What's up?" said Back to Front. "I'm all of a tremble. There's something down there in the long grass." "Where?" said Back to Front, looking the wrong way. "Down there." It was a young mouse. "Sorry if I frightened you," said the little mouse, "but I'm starving and I wondered if you could give me something to eat." "Of course," said Sad Sack, who knew what it was like to be hungry. "Delicious," said the little mouse. "Oh, where'd you get all this lovely food?" he asked innocently. "We get it from a factory canteen," Hi-Fi told him. "Oh. So nice to meet you all," said the mouse as the Raggy Dolls waved goodbye. "What a nice, polite little mouse," said Sad Sack. "There is something about him I do not like," thought Claude. The next day, the factory was full of mice. "They're all over the factory," agreed Princess. "They've got into the workshop." "And into Mr. Grimes' office." "And worst of all, they're in the canteen," said Dotty. "Eating the cheese, are they?" asked Sad Sack anxiously. "They're eating everything in sight," said Dotty. "They'll have to be stopped." "The problem is, how?" said Back to Front. By lunchtime, the factory workers had all gone home. They said they couldn't work in a place that was overrun by mice. Only Florrie Fosdyke, the canteen lady, was left. She'd been reaching for a bun in the larder when it grew a tail and whiskers. "Whoa! It's another mouse!" she screamed. Mr. Grimes was inspecting his mail. "Drat!" he shouted. "This is the 10th letter they've eaten today. I must fetch the rodent man." When he was gone, the Raggy Dolls crept into his office. The Raggy Dolls heard giggling coming from the top of Mr. Grimes' desk. 3 mice were sitting on a pile of ragged envelopes. There were shreds of paper all around them, and they were grinning. "You're very naughty mice," said Dotty. "You shouldn't eat Mr. Grimes' letters." "Squeak, squeak, squeak, hee, giggled the mice. They stuck out their tongues and pulled faces at Dotty. "Now then," said Back to Front, "mind your manners." "And mind your own business," snapped the nastiest of the mice. "Get 'em, gang." Suddenly, Mr. Grimes' office was full of mice. 2 of them caught hold of Lucy and tried to pull her arms off. Another used Sad Sack as a trampoline. "Watch out, you mice!" cried Dotty. "Mr. Grimes is coming back with that rodent man, and he's probably got traps to catch you all." In a twinkling, all the mice had vanished. "We'd better hide too," whispered Dotty. So the Raggy Dolls hid in a cupboard and peered through the keyhole. "Don't worry, Mr. Grimes," said the rodent man. "I'll have this place cleaned up in no time." The Raggy Dolls could see him preparing little saucers of blue food. "What's he doing?" whispered Princess. "Whatever you do, don't touch it," said Back to Front. "I think it's poison." It was. The rodent man put some on the tops of cupboards and others on the ground near each mouse hole. Then he went away. Mr. Grimes went with him. Florrie Fosdyke was still standing on her chair in the canteen. She'd forgotten why she was standing there, because she was very forgetful. "You can get down now, Flo," said Mr. Grimes kindly. "The rodent man's been, so there won't be any mice left tomorrow."
Mice, Mr. Grimes? Oh, yes, of course, mice!
cried Florrie Fosdyke.
3 blind mice, 3 blind mice. See how they run, see how they run. They all run after. Ooh. 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice. See how they run, see how they run.
She never noticed that 3 mice were following her with eyes as sharp as razors. They watched through the window as Florrie cooked herself supper. Macaroni cheese. "Cheese," slobbered the first mouse. "Melted," gulped the second. "With a brown crust," drooled the third. Next morning, there were even more mice in Mr. Grimes's office. They were eating everything except the blue food.
They must have guessed the blue stuff poisonous,
whispered Hi-Fi.
"Something has got to be done about this,"
said Dotty again.
"Put your thinking caps on, chaps. This is serious."
The Raggy Dolls thought very hard. Lucy thought of asking the mice very politely to go away.
"They'd tell you to go away, and they wouldn't be polite about it,"
said Sad Sack. Suddenly, Princess had a brainwave.
"The Pied Piper of Hamelin!"
she cried.
"What do you mean?"
said Dotty. Princess told the other Raggy Dolls how she'd once seen a picture in a book. There was this magic man playing his pipe music, and behind him, in a long black line, came all the rats of Hamelin town. The piper led them far away, and they were never seen again.
"Bravo! We make a music, enfin! It is simple!"
exclaimed Claude.
"I'm afraid it's not as simple as all that," said Sad Sack. "None of us can play a pipe."
"Oh dear," sighed Princess. But at that moment, the Raggy Dolls heard a voice singing.
3 blind mice, 3 blind mice. See how they run, see how they run.
It was Florrie Fosdyke coming to work. She'd forgotten that the factory was closed because of all the mice.
"You'd better go home, Flo,"
said Mr. Grimes gloomily.
"We're still overrun."
There, Grimesy, said Florrie Fosdyke. "Don't you fret. I'll go home and cook you some dinner in my own kitchen."
"Thanks, Flo,"
said Mr. Grimes.
"Macaroni cheese, yum, yum,"
slurped all the mice. The Raggy Dolls could hear them whispering under the floorboards and behind the skirtings.
Macaroni cheese, yeah, cheese with macaroni. Yeah, ooh, brown and crusty, ooh, great.
When she got home, Florrie cooked the biggest macaroni cheese she'd ever made. She left it on her kitchen table and went off for a little rest. She seemed to be fast asleep.
"Quick, gang, now's our chance,"
cried the nastiest mouse.
"Macaroni cheese, here we come," slurped all the mice.
In no time, the dish was licked clean. There wasn't a loop of macaroni left. But as soon as it was finished, something strange began to happen.
"Ooh!"
cried the nastiest mouse.
"Ooh!"
cried the others. The mice began to pull dreadful faces.
"My tummy's turning into stone,"
gasped the greediest mouse.
"What's she put into it?"
groaned the nastiest mouse.
"Cement!"
cried the oldest.
"Cement instead of salt! Let's get out of here! Florrie Fosdyke is dangerous!"
cried all the mice. Florrie Fosdyke watched them go.
"I'm not always forgetful,"
she chuckled.
"Grimesy will be pleased."
The Raggy Dolls saw the mice running away as fast as their legs would carry them. "Good old Florrie," cried back to front. "She's got rid of them at last."
"But how did she do it?"
wondered Claude. Later, the Raggy Dolls found out when they heard Florrie telling Mr. Grimes all about it.
"What will happen to the mice?"
asked Lucy, starting to feel sorry for them.
"Oh, they'll probably have a tummy ache for a couple of days. I think they've learned their lesson,"
said Dotty.
"So have we,"
said Sad Sack seriously. "What's that?" asked the others.
"Beware of strangers, even hungry baby mice."
Raggy Dolls, Raggy Dolls, Raggy Dolls are happy just to be. Raggy Dolls, Raggy Dolls, dolls like you and me.
One Saturday morning, the Raggy Dolls woke up to find a big, dark shape across the top of the reject bin.
Whatever is it?
Whispered Lucy, all of a tremble. I know it sounds daft, said Back to Front, but I think it's a boat. He was right. The Raggy Dolls were soon out of the reject bin and onto the boat. It's a beauty, said Back to Front. I wonder what's wrong with it. Let's examine it, said Dotty. The boat had an engine and sails, and it was big enough to carry them all, even Sad Sack. It seemed to be in perfect condition. No holes for the water to leak through, no broken ropes. Let's take it down to the river and test it, suggested Hi-Fi. And in no time at all, the boat was in the water. Ahoy there, shipmates, said Dotty. If it's all right with you, I'll be captain.
What does the captain do?
Asked Sad Sack. Decides where to go and things like that, said Dotty importantly.
Well, where are we going?
Said Princess. Eh bien, said Claude. Perhaps we can sail to France. We are not sailing to France, said Dotty. Why not? Asked the others. Because it's too far away, replied Dotty firmly. Mais not for a bateau such as this. It is magnifique. I will get a map. And before Dotty could say anything, Claude was off.
We could take a picnic,
said Sad Sack. And before Dotty could say anything, he was off too. Really? Said Dotty crossly. The captain is supposed to tell people what to do. Claude returned with a map of Europe. Hi-Fi studied it. France didn't look all that far from England. Only a strip of water between them. I could navigate that easily, said Hi-Fi. Yeah, no problem, agreed Back to Front.
We could stay for the weekend,
suggested Princess. I'm the captain and I decide where to go, snapped Dotty. And I still say France is too far away, whatever that map says. In the end, they all agreed on a river cruise, just down to the sea and back again. Ducks watched from the bank and fish dived out of the way as they passed. Behind them, the boat left two long furrows of water that rolled away on each side, bubbling and frothing like churned milk.
Isn't it fun? What an adventure,
squeaked Lucy.
and we've hardly started yet.
Chuckled Back to Front.
I hope we stop for lunch soon, thought Sad Sack. All this fresh air is making me hungry.
Soon the river widened as it reached the sea. The wind grew stronger, and they could hear seagulls calling to each other. Stop engines, ordered Dotty. No problem, said Back to Front, switching off the engine. Drop the anchor, said Dotty.
Drop the anchor,
said Sad Sack. Whoops, cried all the Raggy Dolls as water splashed across the deck. But the sea was too deep for the anchor to touch the bottom. Oh dear, cried Lucy. Is it dangerous? Not in the least, said Dotty. But just then, a large wave broke over the deck. The Raggy Dolls clung to each other and gasped. Switch on the engine, ordered Dotty. But when Hi-Fi pressed the starter, nothing happened. Try again, said Dotty. It's not working, spluttered Hi-Fi. Here, let me have a go, said Back to Front. But the engine wouldn't start for him either. Lucy began to tremble.
Now we know why the boat was in the reject bin, thought Sad Sack.
He began to feel quite seasick.
This is terrible,
cried Claude.
We are going to be shipwrecked.
No, we're not, snapped Dotty. Buck up, everyone. All hands to the mast. Some black clouds appeared in the sky, and a few drops of rain spattered on deck. It looked as if a storm was brewing. Keep calm, everyone, yelled Dotty. We'll have to sail her into shallow water. Does anyone know anything about sailing? No, said all the Raggy Dolls anxiously.
You're the captain,
muttered Sad Sack. That's true. Hoist the anchor. No one was sure which rope to pull, but between them in the end, Back to Front and Hi-Fi managed to get the sails up. they began to flap and fill out. Then the deck gave a lurch and a shudder, and suddenly the boat began to move. It glided through the water like a swan, gathering speed as its sails swelled in the breeze. "Hooray!" cried all the Raggy Dolls. The storm clouds drifted away, and there was blue sky ahead.
Don't look now, but I think we're heading out to sea,
said Sad Sack.
Oh dear, shouldn't we turn back?
Asked Lucy anxiously. We should, but we can't, said Back to Front.
Why not?
Cried Princess. But because we don't know how, said Hi-Fi.
If we can't go back, we'll just have to go forwards,
said Dotty bravely.
Aye, aye, Captain,
said Back to Front.
The wind will soon change direction and blow us back,
said Dotty. But it didn't. It blew steadily from behind, so that the boat held its course, straight ahead. The Raggy Dolls sailed on and on towards the empty horizon. Behind them, the cliffs grew smaller and smaller, till they were no more than a dark line on the rim of the sea.
We'll never get back,
said Sad Sack gloomily.
Who cares?
Laughed Back to Front. A yacht passed in the distance. There was a girl on deck, fishing, but she never noticed them. They passed a boy with a seagull perched on top, bobbing up and down in the waves. But most of the time, there was only empty sea around them, stretching away in all directions.
I think this is ever so exciting,
said Princess.
So do I, agreed Lucy. But I wish we knew where we were going.
Claude hadn't said anything for a long time. He was keeping lookout, staring ahead with a happy smile on his face. When he saw land ahead, he began to sing. Allons, enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé.
What's he singing?
Asked Lucy.
I think it's the French national anthem,
said Princess. They were heading straight for a white, sandy beach.
Mes amis, cried Claude. We are there. We have, how you say, made it.
The boat glided ashore so gently that it came to rest with hardly a wobble.
Well done, my little capitaine,
said Claude.
Welcome to France.
And then even Sad Sack began to enjoy himself, because at last it was time for lunch.
It's ever so nice in France, isn't it?
Said Lucy. The Raggy Dolls paddled and sunbathed and ate some more picnic and slept under the stars. It was very late next morning when they woke up. There was no wind at all now. The sails hung limp from their masts, and the sea was like glass.
I told you we'd never get back,
said Sad Sack.
Give that engine another try, said Dotty.
Aye, aye, Captain, said Back to Front.
Hooray, it's working again, cried all the Raggy Dolls. Full speed ahead,
ordered Dotty. The boat shuddered, and the Raggy Dolls were on their way home again. Claude stood at the back of the boat and waved au revoir to France.
Now we have this boat. We can return any time we like,
he thought happily. They were hardly back in their reject bin before they all fell asleep, except Dotty. She had another look at the map of Europe. She could see the river they'd sailed up, and the estuary, and not far from the shore, an island in the sea. It was much nearer than France.
That's where we landed, thought Dotty. I didn't think it was France. France is much further away.
But she didn't say anything because Claude was asleep, and he still had a smile on his face.
It's not much of a life when you're just a pretty face. Just to be whoever you are is no disgrace. Look around and you will find people of every kind, like the Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls,
dolls like you and me. Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls,
Raggy Dolls,
made him perfectly. So if you're not at ease with your knobbly knees and your fingers are all thumbs, Stand on your two left feet and join